Ja, ich glaube schon.
Yes, it's just before we went to big things around stress actually. Everything was so good. So we went to the park and then it was like
Ja, aber es ist schon Kommunikation, die man nicht geil ist. Wie viel sie jetzt schon das ist die Problem. Muss ja natürlich Campus.
so we just did it.
Jetzt kommen wir an. Shall we start? So, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me. Maybe we close some doors, but then we don't have air maybe.
No, I think we should leave the doors open. Leave the doors open.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, thank you for coming. Really great to see you all. I hope everybody has a seat. There are two left here. Might be one here, but I think everybody has a seat, right? So, welcome to this It's About Tech. It's the third event we are having in this series, It's About Tech. We're talking about data science, more though artificial intelligence, and we want to check the reality. What is possible and what kind of maybe also dangers when I have a critical view on this topic, right? I'm your host, Thomas Brenzikofer, managing partner of Swissmade Software. The rest you can look up on the internet. So, what's It's About Tech? It's About Tech is a event series where we want that tech enthusiasts of the region can meet, talk, learn, and also, of course, have fun, hopefully. And it's a joint initiative together with the Economic Development of Basel-Stadt. So it's an initiative started, it's part of the bigger initiative Basel Tech. Elijah, who is here, will talk more about that soon. And together with our networking partners, Digital Basel, Basel Hack, Technology, and Basel One. And of course, Basel, It's About Tech is made possible thanks to our partners, Sion, TINM, Magnolia, Canton of Basel-Stadt, BRICS, and CSM. CSM, who is co-hosting us here. Christoph Yoder is the lead, software lead, CSM here in Basel. So he will tell you more about it afterwards in the networking. So, this said, I have to change slides now. So, this said, I would like to ask Elijah to come and present his.
So welcome from my side, also from the Canton of Basel City. My name is Elijah, and also call me Elias in German. I grew up in Basel, I studied in St. Gallen, lived abroad several places, have a Philippine background, so kind of international stuff coming together in one person. Basel Tech. What is Basel Tech? Who knows about Basel Tech? Please raise your hand. Oh, quite some new. Like, Basel Tech is something really exciting. Honestly, it's my job, and it's the best job that I have currently. It's so amazing. So, let me quickly tell you something. Imagine a city with incredible potential, filled with brilliant minds and untapped resources. A city that has been forgotten by the digital world, left behind way of disruptive innovation. This city is Basel. But it's time for change. For too long, the ICT ecosystem in Basel has been weak and fragmented, hindering the growth of digital innovation. But beneath the surface lies a wealth of hidden gems and opportunities, waiting to be underneath by those with the vision and drive to bring them to life. That's where Basel Tech comes in. This new program is dedicated to supporting and nurturing digital innovation ecosystem in Basel, bringing together the best and brightest minds to create a community-like minded individuals who are passionate about creating change. By becoming part of Basel Tech, you'll be joining a movement that's committed to making a difference in the world. You have access to a wealth of resources and support, including mentorship, funding, network opportunities, as today. But more than that, you will be part of something bigger than yourself. You'll be joining a community of people who are dedicated to creating a better future for all leveraging the power of technology. So if you're ready to make a difference, to be part of something truly special, then join us today. Be part of Basel Tech family. Together we can build a brighter future for Basel and the world at large. Pretty impressive speech, right? Wasn't it? Can I take the honor? ChatGPT wrote it. Pretty cool, right?
Yes.
So, let me quickly tell you more about the tech in my terms. To have a recap, the status quo, like Basel is not very popular for the tech community, the ICT. We are not known in Switzerland or Europe. Like when we see just the employment rates, we have 2% compared to other cities and Switzerland at large. We have a nominal value added of less than 1 billion compared to Zurich, which has almost 10. We have also, when we look at the employment in total, according to this Statend from the Bund, we have only 4,000 ICT employees. But that's not correct, because like in the pharma branch and the other branches, we have much more IT than can be shown in here. So Basel Tech has quite a vibrant history. We started 2020 with several workshops in the FinTech and InsurTech vision, where the participants realized one key point, which is an attractive tech community needs to be created in the region to enable successful industry-independent digitalization for finance, insurance, logistics, art, culture, and so on. So what we realize is we need to think larger. We cannot just foster fintech. We cannot just foster one sub-branch. We need to look at the whole in general. So we had other findings, like Basel is a kind of catching up mentality when it comes to digital topics, or kind of we have the charisma and framework, but it's not really that supportive as well. We have also kind of innovation culture, but in tech, we're not yet that far to call us disruptive. And the 9 months that I was with Basel Tech, where I am still, is we created a successful web platform. You can scan the QR code and just join, or most of you joined via our website. This event today, we have had over 100 company talks and one-on-ones. This morning I was at Baloise and was interested about mobility. We have several new leads, like knowledge transfer programs with the universities, and so on. For those who know this slide, this is kind of outdated, but I still use it because it gives a good overview what we done in the past. So this toolbox of 4 programs or 4 projects, ecosystem mapping, we continually improve it. It's kind of MVP product, so we still need quite a lot of stuff to work on. The community building part, where we have 2 events last year and 4 events coming this year. We're planning to have 1 big event where we also want to really host like everyone concerning tech, and we have further stakeholder meetings and workshops. For the Tech City conference, we're planning this on Q3, and incubation acceleration. We have currently discussions going on with partners. If you're interested with that, also just come to me. And right now, I'm calling for participants for joining, helping me planning, thinking ahead how we can improve the website, how we can improve community building. If you have ideas, if you're yourself a community manager, please come to me and look how we can support each other. And it's all about connecting the dots. Really, we have such brilliant people here, but sometimes I'm so surprised that we don't even know each other, even in the same organization. And that's where we want to be part of. So the initiative Basel Tech is about being together to act, and now, not tomorrow. We had various programs in the past from various players, and we often missed that something ran and something was done. So we want to do something now. And yeah, we see as enablers, facilitators of the digital ecosystem, and we are supporting the network. We want to support successful stories and promote like industry independent projects and like overall the ecosystem. These are very many buzzwords. I'm sorry for that. I come from business school, so so we see these actions areas from various talks and pain points that we heard. There are definitely more. Talent problems, attractiveness of the city as a tech hub, financing for tech companies. I heard from non-life science startups, it's quite hard to find funding. Here we started a little bit with our mapping and also data information. We just need more. And for those who are interested a little bit more about organizations, so Basel City started with this, but we're definitely not the only one. We want to have a more collaborative way. We want implementing partners. We need definitely program partners and pioneer groups, like those who strengthen the network and ecosystem, that give advice, suggestions, and there are other roles that you could come up. Sorry. Jump too fast. So yeah, networking partners, advocates, sounding board, or good team mentors. Please come to me if you have any questions. It's just too much to tell you everything now. And then we're also proud, like with software about this event, also with our partners of the Fachhochschule and the University Innovation Office, which also have already agreed to join this movement, and we hope to see more of you to join. So I'm calling for participants. We are looking for, if you know, these 16 personality types. We're looking for people which are kind of have a mediator of advocate mind, or kind of a proactive strategic mindset, but also are doers, which are programmers, which can do simple tasks of, I don't know. I do know Python, but just, yeah, you guys know it better. I just have big requirements, like that this really goes on. I would love to have a 2-month afternoon meeting, at least. Then real motivation, enthusiasm, and you need to be inclusive and a team player. So if this is you, please scan this code or come to me, and you need to check this box, then you'll be added, and I write you, and we have this starting these workshops. All right, thank you very much, and great to be here and see you here.
Sorry, I missed it. Thank you, Elijah, for this introduction to Basel Tech. So we're going to start now. So I allow myself to say a few words about Swissmade Software. So Swissmade Software, we are on a mission to actually foster the whole Swissmade Software or whole digital business in software. Of course, we're, as the name says, very much focused on Swiss values, as you see here. And most of all, we think that digital sovereignty is a big topic that we would like to follow on up. And I think it's very important also for the topic we're discussing today, as we hopefully will see later and discuss later on. So why digital sovereignty? What does that mean? I'm going to go through very quickly, just some images. I mean, you know, are you sure who can pull the plug of your software you're using? Then the next thing is who gets all the data, you know, and are you really in control of the infrastructure? Are we really in control of our ICT infrastructure we're using every day and we're relying on? So these are some of the questions that really maybe should make us a little bit uncomfortable, and that's why it's good to have the provider near to you, especially if you use critical applications, critical software, critical infrastructure. So that's what we are actually, that's our mission, that's our vision. So we think that a strong Swiss digital industry is the best guarantee to be digital sovereign where it is needed, right? I'm not saying you have to be completely everything in Switzerland, but ask the question, is this critical and should it be more under your control? And so who are we? What do we have? We have 1,100 label owners. There are 800 products you can look up on our platform. And with this, we're probably the largest company network in Switzerland in the digital industry. And so what is our strategy? What do we do? First of all, we have our label, the Swissmade Software label, the Swiss Digital Service label, and the Swiss Hosting label, very important. So if you want to be sure that the data is in Switzerland, controlled by Switzerland, by a Swiss company. And of course, we have our platform where we make all this visible. You can search there for companies, for products. It's very comprehensive. You find any kind of software solution there that you need. And we provide information and, of course, foster collaboration, networking, what we do with these events. And that's how you can engage. You can become a label owner. You can become a platform member, content partner, and, of course, an event sponsor. And that's what we hear. It's about tech. We have several different events going on during the year. Check out our website. And thank you for the partners of this event, of the series actually, of this year. And with that, we will now go to the actual topic. First of all, the agenda. So you have heard the welcome speeches, the introductions. Then afterwards, we have 4 presentations. So Christian Walter will start. He will give more a critical look at artificial intelligence, where we stand. We discuss a lot about that, so that's kind of the summary of a lot of eternal discussions, right? And then we will have Ursin Bruno, who gives us an interesting insights into how to use ChatGPT. Then we have Andre Bieler from PowerShift, who actually presents a case study, so actually using machine learning for a very specific purpose. And then at the end, we have Tommaso Beninelli from CSM, who will talk about his learnings implementing AI in industry. So again, stuff you can learn, insights that will be shared. Thank you very much already now for joining, for engaging. And then afterwards, we will have a panel discussion. We will put some tables here, and then you can bombard us with your questions, and we'll have other questions. So we will have a lively discussion here. And then afterwards, of course, we will have, for what you all came for, the networking approach. I hope it arrives. It should arrive by 6. So, this said, let me introduce very quickly, with the Imagine, right? So, maybe I've heard about the Centaur. So the digital Centaur is actually, that's what we think, right? So the legs is AI technique that helps us, and we humans still have the control in the head, right? But actually, there's the reverse Centaur, which is kind of, looks awkward, right? And so this is where we stand, I think. And the reverse Centaur, that's the path. Are we on that path? Are we on another path? Or is there a third path? Is there a European path? Is there only the Chinese path? Let's discuss that later. And now, we go to the first speech. But I will put up here other presentation. Please, Christian.
Thank you, Thomas. So, hello. Thank you all for showing up. Apparently, it's an interesting topic. My name is Christian Walter. I'm the head of Swissmade Software, and I'm going to talk to you today about the AI hype. Now, I've changed the title of my presentation on short notice. It's now called "Nothing is Hallucinated, Everything is Stolen." As this is a short speech, I only have 15 minutes. I can only offer the top view of some very complex topics. But I have added a large list of resources at the end of the presentation. We'll, of course, share all the presentations after we're done for everybody who wants to dig deeper, and which, in opposition to the currently prevalent models, means that my data set is completely transparent. Okay? Good. First of all, we've all been here before. This is not our first rodeo. This is not our last hype cycle. This is very important because I'm sure some of you remember that one. Please imagine the music. You all know the movie. The list could be extremely long of things I list here. And we should be mindful of this because we're in a very hype-driven industry. And we should all step back from that from time to time and try to look at the reality of it. So, first question maybe we should ask ourselves, why is this happening now? A lot of people will say, the product is mature now and it's being released, right? I think there's a few other reasons for this. First of all, and most important, I think, is this one. Interest rates are rising. Yeah, which means money isn't free anymore. This is really important because it means bye-bye unicorns. A lot of the big multi-billion-dollar value businesses that have been built in IT over the last 10, 15 years, they will go away now, if they haven't already, or they'll crawl under the umbrella of Microsoft or some company like that, because these are businesses that never had to produce any kind of profit. This is enormously important for the future. I mean, beyond AI, for all areas of industry, this is going to be really big, unless the interest rates come down again, of course. In that case, I'm wrong. But currently, it doesn't look like that. Also, what's really important, and this is something everybody should think about, is if you entered the industry, say in finance, you became a VC 15 years ago, that means you entered the industry at a time when money was basically free. You have no investment experience with interest rates. You have no clue what that means. And a lot of people who actually know what that means, in the meantime, have gone into retirement. Yeah, they're gone. And it's a bit like, I read like the best explanation, it's like the return of gravity if you've been told that gravity doesn't exist. Of course, this happened, crypto crashed, the metaverse imploded, and Alexa won't be telling you how hot you are anytime soon anymore. And the list of technologies I could add here is longer than my arm. You know, self-driving cars, NFT, pick your topic. Now, what does that mean? all this stuff has disappeared. There's a giant empty space, a vacuum now. And as we all know, nature abhors a vacuum. So do marketers, VCs, and tech bros. So what we need is the next big thing, but don't believe the hype. Okay, it's really important to step back from all of this. Of course, this slide is not 100% correct. Learn how tricks are used to sell bullshit ideas. This is really important for everybody. Identify misinformation, very important, and then learn about science and nutrition. I left that in there. I think it's generally good advice. Okay, so at the top of the interest pyramid right now, where's the most attention? Of course, large language models, right? So before we dive into that, what they are and what they can do, we should maybe look at what they are not. And before I go in there, let me first state, I think this is a very groundbreaking technology. There'll be lots of interesting applications in the future people will talk about for many years to come. But I don't think it's going to be what we read in the headlines right now, which is, again, what happens in every hype cycle. Also, I think it's very important for all of us to get away from marketing terms and overall, like this is magic or something like it. It's not. And one good example, I think, that's very easy to prove is like everybody who's been selling you big data for the last 10 years is more or less selling you the same thing now, only in the sales presentations you find AI, AI, AI. And most important of all, it's not human. This is very important. I know there's going to be a controversial discussion about this later on, I'm pretty sure. But again, we should stop attributing human qualities to a bunch of numbers, because it takes away our ability to think critically about it. These AIs, they don't have aspirations, they don't have dreams, they don't have will, they don't want stuff. We want stuff, and then we make the AI do stuff. Maybe not what we wanted, but it does things because we originally wanted something. The result might look a little different, but that's a reality. Also, it's important to imagine this. If a couple of years down the road, all of humanity dies, well, the Black Death 3.0 hits, everybody's dead. These machines will not start their own civilization and reach for the stars. They go on standby. So again, what are they? Large language models. Essentially, it's autocomplete. Every time you type a message on your phone and you're like angry because it's saying stuff like, for example, you call your baby, you want to write a message to your babysitter. Can you sit, right? And then it completes on my face. That's probably not what you want. On the other hand, it's autocomplete on steroids. So this is actually really important. There's a difference here. Or as Stephen Wolfram said, it's just adding one word at a time, because this is really essentially what it's doing. There's a resource there in the back. You can read this one. Essentially, this is what it's doing. And also what's really important to step away from the awe of the technology is that there's no trust in itself inside of the technology. As you all know, ChatGPT-4 was just released. And again, once again, we know very little about the training data. But one thing they have openly admitted is they were very careful to exclude all the results of previous generations of AIs. So they didn't want, in the training data, outputs of the previous generations, that you're distrusting your own technology because it'll poison the next generation. And what you call that is, I call it the Habsburg AI. Well, not me, I got this from, like I said, everything is stolen. Yeah? Because it's a very bad idea to marry your own cousin. Look at European royalty for a few generations. I'll come back to this in a minute. Again, there's a little issue here, but the best new definition, again, this is just to kind of make you step away from the magic feeling of it all, is let's call it a salami, not an AI. Some guy in Italy came up with this, and it's systematic approaches to learning algorithms and machine inferences, which is actually pretty good. And to see how this works, try this, okay? Is this AI intelligent? Can this AI write a novel? Does this AI deserve human rights? Okay, these are questions you will find in a lot of articles, more or less. Now try this. Is this salami intelligent? Can this salami write a novel? Does this salami deserve human rights? I really invite you to take a moment, maybe later on. I mean, everybody who's interested in AI has a favorite article. Take that article, copy paste, replace AI with salami. Read it again. I'm sure you will come out with a different point of view. Okay. Also, very important question. I mean, this is a question you have to always ask yourself. Who profits? Cui bono? Who are the people behind the marketing hype? And I've picked two because everybody knows them. Peter, competition is for suckers. Thiel, and Elon, I bought Twitter for 40 billion. Now it's maybe worth 8. Musk. Obvious geniuses. And coincidentally, people who are also early investors in OpenAI, which, as someone quipped, is neither open nor artificial nor intelligent. It's the thing with language. And I could add like hundreds, like with the products earlier. It's the usual list of tech bros. And these people have been at what they're doing for 20 years. This is less about the technology than about, making money by any means necessary. And what they're doing is, I call that narrative imposition. This is really important because they're telling us a story. And on average, it goes something like this. A fantasized AI-enabled utopia or apocalypse which promises a flourishing or potentially catastrophic future. So, and we all have to kind of deal with that. And you have the deer in the headlights effect. You freeze, like this is, oh God, right? Either it's a utopia and it's great, or we all die. And the best way to deal with this is, of course, let these guys take care of it, don't ask questions. We heard this before. And this is truly harmful because while we're supposed to adopt in our heads to this imagined future and assume the position, so to speak, we miss the chance to deal with the very real problems of the present. You're busy with something that might never happen, and at the same time you miss the opportunity to go to the toilet, right? We know how that ends. Okay, so few examples here. Why this is problematic. Data theft for the profit of the few. I mean, this is a reality. I'm not going to go into this in detail. Worker exploitation. This is important, but not for the usual reasons. I mean, you can say this is bad, or maybe that's the way of life. But I think this is also something to think about when you want to go away from the overall of technology. Because I think a lot of the magic appeal of AI comes from the prompt, right? You sit in front of your computer, there's the prompt, and you input your little question, and then it produces a work of art or a 20-page essay in seconds. Wow, magic, right? And this only happens because you don't see the extended human supply chain at the back end, which is usually third world countries where literally thousands of people work to shape the data into a form that can be used to train the data. And all this magic doesn't happen without these people who are paid $1 an hour. So it's not that magical after all. Also, CO2. I've heard we have something like global warming. And these models, they require, as they become bigger, ever more energy. This means ever more CO2 that gets put into the air. And also you have to constantly update it, like ChatGPT-4, like some general purpose, supposedly, salami. You have to constantly retrain the thing because it will not know what has happened recently. It's blind to that. This is just one example, and there are many. And finally, really important, synthetic media, because all the outputs are very close to fake news, a topic that has been laundered through the media now for the last couple of years. And it's not labeled correctly. If it comes from a machine, we don't see it. And this is really important. French philosopher Jean Baudrillard came up with the concept of the simulacrum. The simulacrum is the copy without an original. So if you imagine an old school photocopy machine, you take a piece of paper, you put it on the copy machine, you press photocopy, it comes out. It's like 99% correct, which is fine if you're a teacher and you want to copy the test for your pupils. But now you do that again. You take the copy, you put it on the printer. You do the copy. You do it again and again and again. You do it 100 times. At the end, you'll have something that looks very, very different from the original. So you'll have a copy, but you can't really delineate where it came from. It's not possible anymore. And if you want to take this into the space of AI, another metaphor you can use, it's a blurry JPEG of the internet. Because what happens is, essentially, you take a snapshot of the internet, you compress it, you get your result. And this wanders back onto the internet. And then when you take the next snapshot, this stuff is already there. And you do it again. Again, it wanders out. And you keep on compressing things. And this is not a good idea. There's a lot of stuff where you don't want lossy compression. Healthcare, for example. Some stuff, this is good, but in general, it's not the best idea to just do everything like this. A bit more practical, what's also important and very, for the appeal of the technology, it wasn't me. Because you can shift responsibility while supposedly saving money. Saying like you can use this in the judicial system, healthcare, unemployment, job applications, and so on. I'll give you a real example. If you're in the US and you go to court, when you're in front of the judge, in many places, the judge is given a score. Let's say it's from 1 to 10. That's the likelihood of you reoffending. That means committing another crime. Okay? So there was this guy, he had stolen some tools, he went in front of the judge, he had priors, he was rated a 6. Okay? At the same time, there was a teenage girl who also went in front of the judge. She had stolen, borrowed a trotti, you know, a push square when you go away. She was rated 10. As a result of this, she never reoffended, by the way. As a result of this, she's still problems finding a job because she's now in the system. The other guy, 2 years later, was arrested, put in prison for burglary, breaking and entering, and some other stuff. Take a guess which one of the two was black. Okay? Now you can say, okay, this is not the US, and I'm not black, and I don't care. You should think about this because there's a tried formula for this. You take a new technology, you apply it to a vulnerable group. You know, and that means children, prisoners, refugees, people in a call center. And then what you do is you move it up the salary chain. So technology that was originally built to surveil people in the Amazon warehouse is now watching you in your home. I think this is a really good quote, I like this one, which also leads back to something I said in the beginning. The hype of powerful digital minds by design ascribes agency to the products rather than the organizations building them. Again, it's about shifting responsibility. It's not us, it's the technology. I don't know why it's doing that, but it's really good. Please buy it. And again, this is about ascribing human characteristics to the technology. It's not, it's just a bunch of numbers. So, and this is really important. Now we're coming to the end, is we are building something like a hyper bureaucracy here. It's a system of no appeals because these algorithms will be used in every area of life and nobody will know what it is about because there's no transparency in the system. Why is the algorithm doing? What's the training data? How was the training data shaped? Is it good quality training data? But it's not an inherent feature in the technology. It doesn't have to be like this. The real question is, how do we use the technology? What do we choose? Yeah, because there's like all kinds of salamis in the world, you know, the good ones and the bad ones, the ones you eat and the ones that do other stuff. And it's a choice we can make. Also, what's important, against lock-in and centralization of power. If we truly want to use these tools in creative and beneficial ways, one thing we can do is, for example, we can only use open data sets. We can make this mandatory. The companies need to disclose where they got the data from, and if the data quality is good, they have to prove this. Another one is include people at the receiving end to build, you know, different kinds of salamis. Then support the people who do the criticizing. There's a lot of smart people out there who don't want to spend their whole time just criticizing the models pushed by Peter Thiel. You know, these people would rather spend their time building alternative models. All they need is money. And finally, really important, I mean, just in general, put some skin in the game. I mean, this is a huge problem we all have. It doesn't matter where. The people who want us to use a certain technology should be held responsible if it all goes to hell. Credit Suisse, anybody? Yeah, because everybody in this room will be paying for this, unless we change it. And what can we do? Finally, in Switzerland, we have top talent, we have great companies, and we should try to do this locally with the aim of solving the problems in the present so we can build the future we want to imagine and not follow the vision of some foreign oligarch. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. And now we will have Ursin Brunner actually back from last time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So the narrative is Christian gave some very thoughtful introduction, even funny. Thank you, Christian. Now we're going to build this up again, right?
I just want to say I have a bit of a hard job now.
With real good in Switzerland produced stuff, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Ursin.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I was here already last time, and today I'm going to talk a bit about the whole large language model hype, and I try more to explain a bit what's behind the technology and what can we do with it. But I'm very interested in the panel discussion afterwards. I think we've got some very good points. Just quickly, I come from TI&M. We're also, I think, sponsoring the event. We build mainly software, but I'm the head of machine learning. So we do projects in machine learning. For a long time, this was like we train models. And now it's often just we use APIs. But I think we will figure out what we'll do in the end. We're around 15 to 20 engineers, which are really focusing on machine learning projects, and a lot of other software engineers which are focusing on more traditional software projects. But yeah, let's quickly talk about this hype we have right now. I mean, we can take any numbers here. We see like ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 2 months. I mean, that's very impressive. And maybe you can ask yourself, why is that? And I think the only reason is basically a bit of a first contact, you know. All of you are using machine learning all the time when you unlock your phone, whatever. But like a general intelligence in a way we have never used before, or a lot of us have not used before. And ChatGPT was just helpful in a lot of different ways, or still is. And that's why it's such a hype. It's somehow helpful. If it's good or bad, we can talk about, but it's somehow helping people. And let me spend maybe 5 minutes to explain quickly what it is, because we always assume that we know. And maybe a lot in here know a lot better than me, but for all the others, I tried to summarize it a bit. And I think this we already heard before today. So it's these large language models, and ChatGPT is one of them. They're basically just predicting the next word. So you gave them a context, like here, the students open there, and then they predict the next word. And to do that consistently and good, they need to know something about the world. That's the whole magic behind it. Under the hood, we have a neural network architecture called Transformer. Some of you might know it. I heard it before somewhere there. It's an interesting architecture. It's nothing super special. Everyone can learn it in a day. So it's really not super complex. And all of these large language models are using this. So there's no magic in it. It's really, right now, it's more like the small tricks and the data. And how do they learn? I think this is also easy to explain. You give them a bunch of text, like really a lot of text. And then you basically give them only a few words and always say, okay, now predict me the next word. So for example, here we start with nothing, and then it needs to predict the next word, which is. And if it does it right, then we kind of reward it positively. Or we don't punish it by loss. And if it does it wrong, we kind of punish it, so it hopefully learns the right thing. That's the whole magic, how this large language model learns. What they learn from is not exactly clear. This was for GPT-3. There we knew at least that the big bunch of it was basically the internet. So we had around 45 terabytes of text data, and a lot of it was the internet. Now for GPT-4 and ChatGPT, which is basically the GPT 3.5 model, we don't know so exactly. We know that they use apparently a lot more proprietary data, which has been curated by humans. Also, maybe interesting, this stuff costs. So, an initial training of GPT-3 costed around 5 million. Now we will most probably be around 10 million threshold. I think this one is interesting. Here we see basically the size of these models. So we used a lot of these word models. They're around 100 to 300 million parameters. So here on the y-axis we have the parameters. It's logarithmic, by the way. And here we have the numbers of years. So basically, we can say every year we have 10 times larger models. We don't know exactly where GPT-4 is in here. We estimate it's around 1 trillion. We can see top right there, PaLM, the model of Google, which will be released this month, is around 500 billion parameters. And now we can ask you, but what are you even talking about? What are parameters, and why do they need to be big, these models? So the whole story of scaling these models is that if they become big, we have what we call emergent behaviors. So some things just happen. And we cannot really explain right now why it happens. There are some papers around, but it's really hard to explain why it happens. We can just say it happens. So With 8 billion parameters, we have language understanding. But for example, explaining a joke is only possible when we cross the 100 billion parameter threshold. It sounds really stupid, but I think that's the current state. Don't trust the tree. We can also look at a bit more serious data. This was a paper by Google, 2022. We can, for example, take this plot here to the very left. There was a challenge just doing simple math, so just adding, subtracting 3-digit numbers and multiplying 2-digit numbers. Up until like 70 billion parameters, this model just failed. They're not able to do it at all, so they don't know the concept of calculating or of basic arithmetic. But then at a certain size, they just understand, okay, to be better at predicting the next word, I need to be able to learn basic math. And I think this is important to understand. These emergent behaviors are the reason why these models right now make such a hype. Then we come to the last recipe, basically, and this is what we call alignment. So it's one thing to have a powerful model, but it needs to be aligned with humans. Otherwise, it doesn't help us. And alignment or fine-tuning is the process of kind of making the model more convenient for us humans. So long story short, you can just chat with it and it will always work, you know. And that's just because of the alignment. And here, OpenAI used a lot of cheap labor in third world countries to basically create conversations. They also used then this labor to kind of rate conversations and build models, so they can use reinforcement learning to even more fine-tune these GPT models. So that was very quick. I hope you got the gist. Let's talk about the big players. First of all, the elephant in the room, OpenAI. I mean, we heard already the evil person behind it, Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is not too happy actually about the whole thing happening right now, because he wanted to take it actually over, but he was not allowed. And then we have Sam Altman now, which is also brilliant at marketing mainly, I would say. And it's important to understand that OpenAI made a huge fuss right now, and Microsoft just jumped in, but I mean, this was all coordinated. You know, they knew since last summer this will happen. And now we have OpenAI with GPT-4 coming out. We have Microsoft, which says we're going to introduce all of this in our office. You can just generate your presentations in the future from your Word documents and so on. You don't need to make slideware anymore. You can not take part in calls, and then just summarize everything for you. So this is just perfectly timed, I would say. I think Microsoft right now is really in a good position, and not only because they introduce it into their products, but also they offer it to us as an API through their Azure services. It's hosted in Western Europe, so not really Switzerland, but for a lot of customers, or at least of our customers, this is enough. So they really say critical data going to the Netherlands, that's going to be fine for us. So we will see a lot more applications by using the APIs, I think. One last word about Google. They were for a long time the leader in the AI research. They came up with the transformer architecture and a lot of other cool stuff. And they will also come out this month with one of their powerful APIs or models, which we can reach through an API called Palm. And they will also build a lot of cool products around it. So I would say we should not write off Google here. They got a bit caught on the wrong foot maybe, but they will definitely catch up. So now maybe the most interesting part, what can we do with ChatGPT or with large language models today? We can, and this is the most obvious case, we can kind of build this AI assistant we always dreamed of. You know, we were forced to work with these chatbots, which were really awful for a lot of years. And now we suddenly have a tool that is a lot better than a simple chatbot. What all we need to do is basically we need to fine tune it to a specific case. Let's call it health insurance. And what we need to do then is we need to make all the data of the health insurance available to the model, because it only works that way. So let's say you have all these insurance policies and product details, you need to make it available to the model. And also the customer data, if you want the model to be able to give answers to that. So if you want to ask, okay, how much did I spend for health insurance last year? Then obviously the model needs to know about your bills. And how do you do that? Just a very, very sketchy architecture. You need to make your documents or your data, can also be databases, available in a way that you index it in a search index. Best is kind of a vector-based search index. And then if I ask a question, I'm going to first try to reduce the data to all the things that could potentially have the answer in them. And then I take this and give it to a little robot, which can be GPT-4, can be Palm, can be even a self-hosted LLM. And this one is then hopefully finding the perfect answer or formulating it. We did already something similar in a project for a customer around half a year ago. So this is more like a search and a PDF viewer to the right, and then to the left we have documents. And now we can activate kind of the neural search. And what we can do then is we can really ask a question. And now in the back, so we ask here, wie produziert die neue Bank in Zukunft Strom? And somewhere in these 3 PDFs, there is the answer to that. And what we do now here is we use like traditional language models, and they will figure out, okay, there is this part in one of the paragraphs which answers the question, and then we can give that back. And now if we introduce also, for example, GPT-4 here, we can take multiple responses together and formulate kind of a perfect answer. So that's kind of the whole agreement. Another obvious case is customer communication and analyzing it. I'm not sure if you used Whisper or any of these speech-to-text models recently. They're just insanely good, even in Swiss German. So you can transcribe now phone calls quite easily, automated. And then you can use GPT-4 or any of the cool models to do all kind of stuff. So simple as this, you just want to summarize it and put it in your CRM system. It's already a big deal, you know. Then you have all the summaries of the communication with the customer somewhere. But you can also do customer satisfaction analysis, upselling, cross-selling potential. Or you can also say, maybe we add some value for the customer. And I have here a little example. So we have here GPT-4, and then we have a transcribed call where we talk about Säule 3a. So the customer is asking if he can move Säule 3a because he wants to invest it. And he mentioned some things in this call. And then I basically just tell GPT, you're going to be an assistant and help me here, and I'm going to ask you questions. So I can... I killed it. So, but long story short, I can ask things which are important for me as the company, but I can also ask something that is helpful for the customers. So, for example, here I will ask next, okay, what is the gain you can have if you have a horizon of 20 years? And then GPT-4 will just go through the whole conversation, figure out all the things it needs to know, and then give me a cool answer which I can present to the customer. Okay, now I need to figure out what didn't work. There's some IT experts in the room.
You want to reopen it?
Yeah, I think we need to kill it. I think I will skip the video.
Oh.
I let it do, and I will just continue. I think there's not too much left. So there's obvious cases like in coding. We are talking a lot about now, the topic of will we become obsolete as software engineers? I think this is not true. We will not become obsolete. What maybe changes how we interact with the code. Maybe we don't write code all the time. It's more like we let it generate and iterate over it. If that's better or not is another question. We did already a few cases where we basically migrated code bases. So, for example, we went from Enzyme, a React testing library, to another React testing library that worked really quite well out of the box. And we also work on like moving really code bases from one language to the other, which is not that trivial, but it will also be a case which is interesting in the future.
I have to reload.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, that will be a few cases. I mean, we work on several cases really right now, but we also feel that our customers, they're right now in the phase where they want to know what is possible. And I think the next phase will be like a concrete project. So we have 1 or 2 concrete projects, but a lot are just in that phase where they want to know what is possible at them.
That's very pity.
Can you move the mouse to the very top left?
Thanks.
And then it might say force quit.
It doesn't do anything.
I cannot put mine on, can I?
You can.
Put yours in.
And Apple in space? Can you search for things Apple in space at the same time. Does it open a window where you can search things? Yes. So then try utility, something like activity. Thank you very much.
What?
Activity. No, nearly.
What?
The V is wrong. The first one. Activity.
Like this.
Yes. Monitor.
Aktivitätsanzeige.
Ah, yes, German. Okay, Aktivitätsanzeige.
Ja? Aber was war das? Ja, mäßig das war.
Ah,
Oder Aktivität. Ja, genau.
kill it with fire.
And just.
I think it was too much. It was too much. Here, huh? Support beenden. Yes. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Just kiss Microsoft.
That was very good. So we will skip that the
Okay.
slides to make sure it doesn't
Thank you for the support.
So, just one more thing. How will we use it tomorrow? I mean, we already talked a bit now. The problems we have right now, the biggest one is for sure is hallucinating. So it sounds always good, but it's often just wrong. It's plain wrong. I mean, here's one. This is really the first try. It was completely wrong. But I'm also quite confident that there will be a lot of research in this field, and I'm not 100% sure we can fix it because it's just intrinsically a bit how these models are built up. But I'm quite sure we're gonna come up with at least mediocre solution for now. But this will be one of the biggest topics. I think another one a bit more fun is going away from pure question answering to what we call smart agents. So instead of just asking questions, you want to say, take this picture and get me all the ingredients I need to kind of cook it, you know. And this you can do by using basically tools or using APIs. OpenAI created their plugin system where you can build your own plugin. And then if someone says, I want to, I don't know, send money with that API, it will happen. And that's just the first. It's just the first part. It will be possible to interact with your calendar, with your email, all of this. But I think the really big thing is the multimodal part. And you can imagine if you need to explain someone the world, and you have only written text, that's not so much fun. You want to have pictures. You want to have like sensoric. You want to have all this stuff. And so the next big thing will most probably be a multimodal language model. We have it a little bit with GPT-4, which can handle pictures, but that's just popped up on top. This is a paper from Google. It's called PaLM-E. It can handle different things. So like visual components, text, and then also sensor data from robotics. I'm also not 100% sure yet we are there. But what this paper shows is that you have a positive effect. So if it learns something from the pictures, it's also better than in producing text about it. And if you have that, that's definitely a big thing. But we can do with it is clear, like language is still possible. But we can also, for example, take that picture and ask what meals can I do with it. Then this, I think, is fun. You can give it that picture and they can ask what the robot will do next. And because it learns somehow something about the world, it can predict that this will fall. Most probably will fall. And here, last slide. Hope it works. Video. So you can give it long horizon tasks. For example, here the long horizon task is bring me the rice chips from the drawer. And then what it does, it chucks it down into smaller tasks. Like, okay, I need to drive to the drawer. I need to open it. I need to kind of get it out. And then if, for example, a mean human comes and kind of disturbs it, and it's gone, then I need to get it out again because it's still not there. And at one point I need to bring it back to the person who asked for it. So the LLM is not directly controlling the robot, but it's breaking down this long horizon goal into smaller chunks. You see that here, so go to the drawers, open them, and so on. And that's just, it sounds a bit like intelligent. Okay, sorry for technical issues, and thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Ursin. Now we have Andre, right? Sure, you will introduce yourself. So.
I will. Can I master this? I need to time myself because otherwise I talk too much. All right. So I like salamis. I'm in the business of not producing salamis, maybe, but maybe the mini pig. So somehow, so this is kind of a summary of what we do daily and kind of examples what's working, what's not. I'm a physicist by training. I was there when the Rosetta mission landed on the comet. I'm serious about pizzas, coffee, and this type of racket sports, which I know actually Thomas from our APEC tennis pedals. So if you want ideas for icebreakers, just say anything of those buzzwords and I'll be all ears. And this quote I wanted to just put on somewhere, and it's about the hype thing. So machine learning is like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it. Only some really know how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they're doing it. I think it's kind of a few years old already, and it was originally, I think, with data science, but as I said, all the big data hype is now the AI hype, and I think it's as relevant as ever. And it's always something to keep in mind. I work at ParaShift. I'm the head of the machine learning group. We are 5 people in the machine learning team. The whole company is 35 people. Just a little bit of context so that you understand all the examples I'll be given are kind of document understanding driven. Basically, you send us documents. We send you a couple of things back. We can kind of intelligently separate batches of documents. So we just brand the whole inbox to your scanner. We separate them, say this is a document, this is another, this is another. And we classify them into different types of documents, and we extract some information depending on what kind of document it is. And this really does not have to be like the classics, like contracts or invoices or anything. You can put your gym memberships, your driver's license, anything you have it. You can train your own models, but we have a lot of out-of-the-box stuff. And we're a full cloud solution because every time everyone wants something on-prem, a puppy dies. No one wants that. Yeah, so first things first, never a good thing to assume you know anything, and that's true on both sides. I think the customer side and the actual ML kind of engineering side, because you usually talk different languages, and it's difficult sometimes to kind of convey some knowledge. There's also different expectations from people. Some think, okay, it's ML, it's AI, it's magic, it will work out of the box 100% of the time, and it's never wrong. So it's important to talk to customers about expectations. Really, can you use machine learning in your workflow or whatever in your daily life? What are kind of the necessary requirements for it to be useful? Because sometimes for some use cases you would need a very reliable system that is correct 100% of the times. Then most of the machine learning approaches probably won't fit for you, because if you're really screwed if you make one mistake, that's not for you. But maybe if the model is already 80% right, it can already reduce your workload by 80%. It's a good idea. So that's all things that sometimes only surface after effect once the customer buys the product, and then they say, well, this is not useful because it has 2% error rate, and I expect 0. And you say, well, yeah. And sometimes you really don't need ML. I mean, a great example was a guy used ChatGPT to parse HTML. Absolutely useless. We solved this like 20 years ago, I think. There's like cheap algorithms to do this. If you want to find some like specific AHV numbers in Swiss documents, it's also fixed pattern. No need for machine learning, even though it's cool, it's fun. It starts usually to get interesting if it's more versatile, like you have an IBAN or a big number, which is surprisingly different from country to country. So you can already start to think about machine learning, because then just throwing data at the machine is cheaper than to have the whole configuration set up and all the special use cases. So it's kind of a weighing of what's good and bad. And here's an example of good versus bad mistakes. Some customers are not aware, like the machine learning model can make different types of mistakes. and some are good, some are bad, and it depends on the use, on the context. And here we have an example where they need it. Does this have a laser pointer?
If you press the top button long enough, you'll see the point. It's not a laser pointer, but you can move the cursor around.
Ooh. All right, these are all kind of different types of documents. This is what they really are, and this is what the machine thought it is. So if it's on the diagonal here, this is called a confusion matrix. If it's on the then it's correct. If it's off, it's not correct. But you can see here that we have drawn with the customer these blue boxes. So this is kind of acceptable mistakes because it's relatively simple document. So it's actually acceptable mistake if you are only confuse your. Oops. Yeah, just leave it. So there's bad and good mistakes. Basically, if you're within the square, the other is within the square. It's a good mistake. But if you confuse, for example, a receipt with a rental contract, it's a bad mistake. But it's usually a lot of discussions to be aware of also with customers. And this is some just battle stories, also from the great philosopher Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That means your model, your ideas, they usually don't survive first contact with reality. And my really first task was just find out when this document was created. And some documents have multiple dates on it, so it's like an easy task because it's obviously going to be a date, but it's not sure which date exactly. And so you can see here there's obviously different dates that you can do it, and I trained my model on the data, and then literally this was the first date that a customer sent me. Like in December 19, which my model of course completely failed. Then we have examples of people putting receipts on maps apparently. So the OCR engine picks up all kinds of funny places like Bern, Zurich, whatever, and the machine gets totally confused. So you have to build something that just focuses on the actual receipt because you didn't think of this. Then we have a chicken egg problem, right? There's no data, no model, no customer, no data. So you have to actually start slow. And we did this, so we had kind of a family, fools, and friends situation. We collected documents ourselves. They were mostly German. First customer, I think one of the first customers, not the very first one, the German travel agency. So yeah, that's cool. But then it turns out all their hotels are in Spain. So all the invoices were in Spanish. Absolutely useless. Nothing worked. Again, back to the puppies. Of course, you produce your first model, you put it into production, so it's in the real world. You're happy it makes predictions, but then the real hassle only begins. Like training a model is a lot of work, getting the data, but actually keeping your model going is a big task. So you have model drift, which means usually you only train on as little model data as possible. But then new data comes in, maybe the data changes over time, and you want your model to adapt. So you train your model with new and better data, which is all cool until you realize, oops, my virtual machine that I have doesn't have enough memory. So my training cycle actually died, and I didn't have any supervising mechanism in place, and I didn't actually realize that for 2 weeks this whole machine hasn't been training, and everybody's complaining. You do software updates, the whole thing crashes. Google does on their machine. They replace the latest GPUs with the old GPUs with some new GPUs. The drivers are not compatible, so it's a whole thing. Basically, you need to put. I think you can get away if you have like 1 or 2 models in production that you can do this manually and you just like take care and check after the model. You go after your morning coffee, you check after the model and see if everything is working. But we have, I think, somewhere north of 1,000 machine models deployed and trained on a constant basis. So we need to have everything automated, and every little change is like nerve-wracking. So you get angry calls at night or stuff like that, right? So we have these reporting things where you can see this is all the trainings that are going. So trainings are running or are already completed, and you can see at any time we have up to 40 or 50 different models that are being trained. So this is all fully automated. and then we have a reporting mechanism in place where it can actually monitor all the performance of these models. And this is also a bit of a problem that we have. We're kind of a smallish startup, but we have an infrastructure that's more of like a big company because it's a little bit of a complex thing, and we're slowly getting there. Another way how we stay out of trouble is we don't interpret any data. That means we just read out whatever's on the document. We don't do anything like we read out, you paid 55 Swiss francs for 3 pizzas. We don't tell you, oh, you overpaid or you underpaid. We just read it out. And that gets rid of all the lawyers and everything else, all the ethical concerns that we also have already heard before, because models are fundamentally built from data, and every bias that is in your data set will end up in your model, will end up in your predictions. So that's a big problem that we already heard of. Then the black box problem also, but there's a lot of research going into there, and that's I think actually it's pretty exciting that machines do some of these or take some of these responsibilities to take decisions, because you can actually, it's also, people like to think that humans are rational. And I mean, if your loan gets not allowed, or you don't get a loan from a bank, I don't know what is more rational, to like argue with a human person that was there or with a machine. As a machine, you can actually, there's going in a lot of effort with counterfactual experimentation or examination of the model, where you can just, let's say you want a loan from a bank and you get rejected. So people, you can pull up a whole framework to critically examine the results. So the goal is then to find the smallest changes that you have to do to your input to actually get the desired result. So what would I have to have been doing differently to actually get the loan? And then you can see, maybe I'm too old already, so I will be likely to die in the next 10 years. Maybe I earned not enough money this year, or I live in the wrong area. So you can actually get some interesting and insightful things out of this. So I think it's not always a black box, but you always have to like put in some effort into examining this for it not to be in the black box. And then of course data protection. We saw all of this. And then always we get slapped in the face a lot by customers. You can see it here. Careful what you report, because you report numbers and you're always proud of your numbers. And then you say, well, my model works great. I produced this super nice salami and everyone loves it. And then they say, no, it's bullshit. I tested 3 examples and it's actually crap. And that can mean like both people can be right at the same time, right? So you tested it in 100,000 examples and you made sure that you have a representative data set for testing, and the model has never seen it, and all these nice things, because it's not that trivial. Like, it's not super complex, but it's also not super obvious on how you actually evaluate the performance of these models. And there's some terms, like before machine learning, I wasn't aware of the English language, that there's a difference in accuracy or precision. So you can see here, this is kind of a sketch, a cartoon on showing this. So this model just sprays around the predictions all around. So it's low precision and low accuracy. This has high accuracy because it's close to the center, but low precision. And this here finally has high precision and high accuracy. So there's some lingo that you need to understand on what's going on. And of course, it's all about the data. We heard if you train your model to recognize cats and, like this, and then your customer comes and he produces actually images of cats, it won't work. And that's basically the final model here, that really, if you ever deal with machine learning models, it's all about the data. Like, good data beats good algorithms. It's been true for forever. Like, since I know, it's like one of the, and people are always surprised that it's really that important. And I think it's also one of the greatest breakthroughs with the latest ChatGPT or GPT-4. It's like they have really high quality data. And I have an example for myself. We wanted to improve the score. Let's say the score is terrible at 0 and perfect at 1, and the customer wanted 0.85. And we landed out of the box. We landed at 0.7. I said, yeah, that's not good enough. We we're not giving you any money, we're unhappy, blah, blah, blah. Product team freaks out. They say, well, it's a super important customer. Let's put all our heads together. We deal with data post-processing improvements. We improve the score by a bit. Then we introduce some rule-based tops on top of everything, improves a bit. We tweak the ML model architecture, make it more fancy, it improves it by a little bit, and then in the end we just clean up the fucking data, and it's just magically good enough. So also, the fun fact is the evaluation was done by the customer. So they were super critical about the machine learning results. And then actually when I applied the same metric to their hand annotated data, because it's also annotated by the customer, they got a score of 0.2. So that's orders of magnitude worse than the model. But humans are somewhat always convinced that they won't do any mistakes, even with the simplest task. But it's super hard to actually produce consistent data and just be focused for like 8 hours a day just to, like in this case, to like annotate stuff on just boring documents. And yeah, that's the last slide. Yeah, data's gold. There's a few things going on to make this cheaper. There's like self-supervised learning, semi-supervised learning approaches where you can find smart ways to produce labels yourself. For example, in the language models, they do this by training when you take a sentence and you block out a word, and then you know which word you blocked out, and then the model has to correctly predict this word again. So all you need is just text, and you randomly strap out data, and then you can produce pretty cheap data. Semi-supervised means you have a little bit of annotated data. And as we also have seen before, this will be super interesting. What happens now with if we have something like a conspiracy GPT that pollutes the internet, which ChatGPT is trained, and the cycle just goes on, because right now I think we are at kind of a sweet spot, because ChatGPT produces actually nuanced answers. So people are very biased nowadays. They have strong opinions, and it's always this or it's that. And ChatGPT, I think they put very, very much care to not being too much biased. So now they're talking about or thinking about watermarking the language models, which is also kind of interesting. So you can kind of watermark the output, and you can detect if it was created by your own algorithm at least. So they don't have a method of finding out if something was produced by conspiracy GPT. There's no like obvious way, but for your own product, you can actually do this in a quite efficient way, where you just produce blacklist, or no, I shouldn't say blacklist anymore, a red list and a white list, a green list of good and bad words, and you kind of, when you know from each word this flops around, and so you have a different list of red and green words, and depending on the statistics, because if a human writes it, it'll be just 50% red and 50% green, and if the bot does it, it's all green, for example. And yeah, that's it. So I'm at the end. Thank you.
So we have our last speech presentation. I'd like to ask Tommaso, come on stage. Tommaso.
How does it look? You just need to press, right?
Yes.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I am Tommaso Beninelli. I am a senior intelligence engineer at CCM, specialized in deep learning. And over the years, I had the privilege to work on a couple of industrial projects with customers on AI. And it's both exciting and challenging. And today, I kind of try to put my kind of what I learn in some takeaways for you that probably are useful if you want to jump, if you have some AI idea. I guess most of you have now, as everyone, or to just understand better the landscape. So before jumping directly, let me tell you something about CCM. CCM is a non-profit organization. It has offices all over Switzerland. And what we do, we act as a technology transfer between academia and industry. Our main goal is to support companies to develop new technologies. And in total, there are more than 500 employees. Not all of them are working on AI, but there is a larger group that is actually working on digital technologies. I'm part of this group. So my daily routine, basically, we work together with ABB or Stadler, this kind of company, for predictive maintenance, for instance. This is something that it's pretty popular, where we try to design an algorithm that tells you how to do maintenance, so that you don't have to wait that the machine breaks to do maintenance. Or we do things such as really camera-based, so vision-based system, where the customers have specific problems, they come to us and we try to help them out. This is a cool example, for instance. In this case, the customer is kind of producing Laserban. It's like producing aluminum profiles. And what happens during manufacturing that sometimes they lose the correspondence between the aluminum profile they produce, the shape, and the serial number. So they ask whether we can develop an algorithm that just grabs a picture and retrieve the serial number. So kind of deep learning. And this is actually working and is in deployment at the moment. So it's not just research. We really kind of try to apply it. And also another side of what we're doing is support system. That's how I like to call it. So kind of we work with for tasks that are right now just expert can do it. And then we try to figure out whether we can create an AI system that can support the task, because it's too tedious, so they want to scale up, and so expert are not enough anymore. And in this case, we work with Metter Toledo. I don't know if you're familiar with the company. They are producing these tools that essentially are calorimeters, and then they end up providing these curves. And these curves represent essentially the amount of energy that materials absorbs over a temporal spectrum. You can imagine water. What happens when it's kind of evaporating? There is some energy exchange there. And there are some phase transitions. You can see here, here, here. And essentially, at the moment, it seems like a trivial task, but you have many different materials, organics, any type of materials. It's really hard. And we come up with an algorithm that can do the task as good as humans. So you really can support them or automatize at least some cases. So you might be thinking, okay, a lot of things going on. How can you deal with all these kind of different projects? And the idea is that, and this is the first takeaway, that any machine learning project, any AI project, let's use the word AI, is kind of, you can really boil things down to kind of this pipeline. I think all the other presenters somewhat really touch on these steps. It is like data ingestion. So you really get the data from your customers. You try to load in your server. Data preparation is preparing data for training. And then model design is preparing the model, tweaking during the training, and then model evaluation. Then if you're not happy, sometimes, and most of the time you're not, you go back and you start again, try to figure out where you made some issues. Otherwise, you go to deployment, and then you monitor the model. So that is the first takeaway. The second one, that each of these steps is paramount. It's really important. There is no step that you can avoid, and a successful project really implies that you've done all these things properly. And to show this case, I want to present two use cases. One is ChatGPT, just because I think it's familiar. We're all familiar with it. And the other one is a project that we did with the Gubelin. Gubelin Gem Lab is a company in Lucerne. And I want to show you, for these use cases, why each step is really important. It doesn't need an introduction, I guess. While Gubelin, what is the Gem Intelligence project about? So Gubelin Gem Lab is a company that essentially, their business model is they act as a certification company for sapphires and other gemstones. And essentially, the value of a gemstone really depends on where the origin is. So if a stone from Kashmir, for instance, it will cost 5 times more than a stone from Madagascar. And we're talking about millions. So essentially, it's really important to know exactly where the origin of a stone is. And at the moment, it is done by experts. And the experts have to look at the stone via microscope. They have to do some spectral analysis. They have to look at elemental analysis, so like just the chemical table, look at much composition. However, there is the gemstone industry is booming probably at the moment. And they came to us saying, okay, our experts cannot really keep up with the rate. Can you somewhat make a support system? So that's the idea. Here, I hope the goal is clear. We want to make a system that essentially kind of helps, or in some cases even replace, experts in this task. So this is the pipeline. Let's go step by step. So data ingestion and data preparation. I think it was mentioned before that this step is either offshore to poor countries, or it's a really tedious job. And that's, I think, is why most of the time is overlooked at the moment. But it's really important to make this properly. Since as we were saying, as the previous presenter was saying, the quality of the model really depends on your data. Just something about ChatGPT-4, for instance. There is like this interview of Sam Altman, the CEO of the company, with Lex Friedman, and he was talking a bit about what really brought the biggest benefits. And he was saying that data quality was by far the biggest factor. So it's not like making this figure even huge, it's just data quality. So then we move to the model itself. And here, I think it's clear to everybody that still the model is important, so I don't have to emphasize why this step is important. At the moment, we are assisting as kind of a standardization of architecture, especially when you have big data. You don't need to spend much time tweaking maybe like a layer, like trying to find the optimal combination of parameters. You just have enough data, kind of every model will work at the end of the day. So it's more, for ChatGPT, it's more like really the engineering approach of running this thing over a cloud. You need tons of engineers working on it. And as we were mentioning before, it's like millions of dollars. Like you do something wrong in the code and you have to rerun it, you have lose millions of dollars. While in our regime, what we actually do in industry, we have much smaller amount of data. And hence what happens is that when you don't have much data, then the model becomes much more important because you want to give the correct inductive bias, it's called. Like the model has to kind of have already a good architecture for the data. And that's why it's important in our case. Then let's move to model evaluation. This is also something that it's a bit overlooked, I think. Like you might be thinking, okay, to evaluate the model, I just compute the accuracy and that's it. However, it's not that simple because sometimes you have to make sure that your metric really it's kind of meets what the customer expected, the stakeholder expected. And maybe accuracy is not the right decision. For instance, for ChatGPT, hallucination, so that was hallucination, they think of the model kind of say confident in something that is actually wrong, is something that is much more important. So they have designed metrics in that direction. In our case, for our project, we first started naively with the accuracy, and then we realized that the crosses here represent what the expert is doing, and here what actually the model is doing. We realized, okay, there is actually we can actually accuracy-wise we're actually better than the expert, 2%. But then we started discussing with the customer and we realized that, okay, but the expert most of the time they just say, looking at stone, I cannot say anything about this stone. This is too hard. So we also took in account the direction of how many stones can actually be automated by our method over how many stones can actually be processed by the expert. And you realize that you have all different kind of metric that you ignore completely if you just consider accuracy. So it's really important to have like a big picture. Here is really going kind of looking at things from high above and making sure that you have everything under control when doing model evaluation. And then, last but not least, if you're happy with the model, then you deploy it. And it was mentioned before already that essentially models tend to age over time. It's not like the parameters tend to become older. It's just like the data distribution that you get tend to change over time. So essentially, ChatGPT is a perfect example. It was trained until 2021, right? Now more that we're moving in the future, he has no clue about that COVID ended or who won the last World Cup and whatsoever. So the accuracy will decrease over time. So it's really important to monitor so you can take action. If you don't monitor, accuracy will go to zero anyhow. In our case, with Gem Intelligence, just simply means that maybe these sapphire stones are being mined from new countries, and then we give to the algorithm. He has no idea about these new places where the stone has been mined, and that's an issue. So I hope this was a good second takeaway. Now let me jump a bit more like about general principles, which we have there are general principles that we can apply to any project, and the answer is yes. And the first one, and I put this in first because it's really the most important one. It seems trivial, but apparently it's not. Is that in order to test the model, you need good data, not to train it, to test it. It happens many times, especially in a predictive maintenance project, that we get customers, and they're like saying, "Okay, I want you to make an algorithm that tell us when the machine is going to break, right?" And we ask, "Okay, how many instances, how many examples do you have in the machine breaking?" And it's like 2, and I'm shivering a bit because I'm thinking maybe we can find a solution for training this thing. Maybe we can find the latest Google paper that doesn't actually requires like instances of machine breaking. But for testing, There is no shortcut. It's really statistics. 50 years old statistics, you have some evidence there. So in order to test the model, you need good data. And also, this is also something that happens. Test data has to be annotated well. Most times happens that you have a model, and then you test on data, and the data maybe is a bit noisy. And what happens is that you get wrong interpretation. You think your model is wrong, while actually the test data is actually wrong. This was happening, for instance, with the GEM project, the Googling project. The stones were actually, we don't know the source or the actual place of origin of the stones because it's too hard. They are actually labeled by the expert. But if the expert is wrong, and then we're testing with the wrong, we have this kind of wrong interpretation, always the culprit. The second, I think the fourth takeaway is that AI, you need to be fast in prototyping. AI, and when I say this, all colleagues that are coming from a physics or mathematics background, which are kind of first, you can build from first principle, are always a bit sad, but they agree with me. It's kind of empirical science. There is no kind of, you cannot really understand what is going on in the model. So people, even the first practitioner, can come up with a new idea, and you cannot just tell him it is wrong, because it might be that's actually the best idea ever. And so you have to try as much thing as possible. And that's why when you're developing anything like that, you need to be fast in iterating. So it doesn't mean that you have to create like all over the place Jupyter's notebook and lose track of things, and then you don't know what is going on. It's just you want to make sure that you have the right tools, and then you don't have any unnecessary overhead. So in my case, for instance, we're not using, I don't know, Docker containers when we are doing the development of this thing. It's just not there's no necessity at the moment, and we remove some overheads. So that's a good principle. And last but not least, the algorithm in AI AI is completely different from the rest of software engineering, because when something does not work in typical software engineering, things breaks down. Here instead, you still get the model working, but it just gives you trash, and you don't realize this. And even worse, sometimes your test data, so the data that you never ever touch, the data that is just used as a proxy for like then assessing how good the model is, end up being in your training data. So you get even super high performance, and you're like, okay. And this actually happened to us. So again, in this project, at a certain point, we were getting 100% accuracy when the expert was getting 60%. And you're like, okay, I'm not the top AI scientist in the world. I don't think I invented something really new. So you have to be always critical. And indeed, instead of saying to the customer, look, the project is over, it was like, okay, let's go back and find the bug. Indeed, it was a bug, because if things seems to be too good, there is something that is wrong. that's a bit of thing. So yeah, that's
Okay, so we're going to have a discussion, also open to your questions. Okay, so please, all the Andre, and also I would like to ask Jan and Kevin to join us from Magnolia and from Bricks IT Solutions. Yes, Kevin. Oh, Jan is. No. Hello. Oh, okay. So this is your time, and also to intervene questions. Maybe I start a little bit with the question that we have not touched. I just, if you all IT programming or whatever. I mean, I thought that this is actually, it could be that the programming, the coding actually could be slowly, could slowly, how to say, quit the job. Like, I mean, I'm basically a writer, so I know what that means for me. I think graphic designer, so very conscious of what happens here, etc. So how about coding, programming? Do you think this is going to be a bit dangerous? Maybe, Kevin, we start with you.
Thank you. I don't think it's a danger because it's like we saw in presentations also, it supports you and helps you, but it's not as far as it does your job or replace your job. But as also I saw examples in the medical business, it can help to analyze and do like write text or show marks, but at the end the doctor has to make the decision what it is.
Yes. But as for programming, does it help? I mean, can you program with ChatGPT? I mean, I heard about that.
Let's ask the audience who is programming on a regular basis and has never used ChatGPT for it. Every programmer so far has
Who is a programmer?
Yeah. But I think it's just very helpful.
Absolutely, lots of experience, productivity boost is tremendous. One thing that I feel really like easily 3x more productive, that stuff. And also given on how young it is, and also seeing on all the tricks of the trade, something that we heard, you can just nowadays really feed in your own code base, and suddenly it's really a complete different beast. Also what you heard with just automatically migrating code bases from, in my case, FreeMarker to Next.js. It's just, that's not 2x, that's 10x faster than doing it by hand. So that's clearly something happening.
So the digital industry for the first time disrupts itself, right? I don't know if it's the first time, we can argue about that, but
Yeah, but I think it will be killing a lot of programming. Like, you will just be so much more productive that you just don't need a lot of boilerplate. And I mean, this is just beginning. So, and it's already so useful. I mean, it's, if you give it a, I mean, you still need to be a programmer, I think, to write it the correct prompt. You have to kind of know what programming is to really ask the correct word. You cannot just type, write me a program that does it. Maybe, but you don't have any idea. But like now, it's super productive. And I actually also think it's kind of awesome that it's coming after us comfortable guys that sit in our air-conditioned, controlled offices. And the guys who do the real work on the streets, on construction sites, they're kind of safe for now. So I think it's cool. And it's going to liberate a lot of smart people from whatever work they're doing now. I don't think they'll be out of work, just different work.
Yeah.
They'll have time to think about other interesting things. And but I'm pretty excited about.
well, I remember when the first graphic design programs came back in the 80s. Graphic design, I think they're out of business, but it never happened. Yes, Marcel, maybe.
Yes, I'm a software developer as well for a lot of years. And I have just experienced that the amount of complexity that you're coping with every day is getting more and more. And if you wouldn't have Google to help you out, you wouldn't find a solution to the problem. So Google is kind of a door opener for more complexity. And at the end of the day, it happens that you copy and paste some code examples which you do not really understand and you have no time to understand it. So you just use it, it works, and you go with it. And the amount of things that you really understand about the code that you are the author is kind of getting less and less of the actual complexity of what you have generated. So you generate something which is not, kind of your work. It's already, it has like foreign code in it a lot, and it's getting more and more, and you kind of get far away from what you're actually doing. It's not your product at the end of the day. And I think it will be a jump in that direction, that we have more and more complex systems that we think we are the author of, but we are not. We just kind of jungle the balls, but the result is something which we are not actually the engineers of.
Totally agree with you.
jump in here as the only non-programmer here. I offer a non-expert opinion on your favorite topic. Now, if you look at this from a different perspective, from economics maybe, there's something called Gibbon's paradox. I was an economist in England during the Industrial Revolution, and they said, okay, look, if we get the steam engine to be more efficient, we need less coal. And the steam engines got ever more efficient, but they needed more and more and more coal. So if you have more of a resource, you will use more of a resource, unless there's something that kind of limits your access to this. So what might happen also is I would call it broaden and cheapen. It means the labor will get cheaper, but everybody will have to do more easy stuff. And in the end, you'll have to. I can call myself a programmer, right? That's my Python code, right?
But it's the same argument that you have in any other industry. Like ask a car mechanic from like the 50s, right? They were putting in all the screws and everything, and nowadays they change up chips and like or a whole tire or whatever, a whole motor block. It's like the same thing. They're still mechanics. They just do different things. It's like you don't put in every screw yourself. It's kind of a more modularized thing.
But sorry, that comes a little bit to Marcel's question, right?
Yes.
Do they actually know what they do when they change just a module?
Well, maybe they don't. But
Yeah.
cars get saved.
Wasn't that your question, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
yeah.
At the end of the day,
Good
you make
example.
decisions and you trust the machine.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the machine is doing, but
Yeah.
you think it's wiser than me anyway, so it knows everything. So
Yeah.
I trust the machine, I do decisions, and I should be the master and not trust always the machine.
So you're already a reverse centaur.
Yeah.
But Ursin was. I think he wasn't quite d'accord with
No, I totally agree with you.
Oh, you
I'm
agree.
not sure if it's a bad thing because I also don't know what the compiler does with my C# code. Let's say, so I don't care. But I think an important, maybe movement is like this whole. Let's say now GPT gets better and we're more like steering and putting together things. Do we still need like cheap labor, let's say in India or so, or is the nearshoring, offshoring thing over? I think this is really an interesting question.
You mean specifically in the programming?
Yeah, in the programming. Sorry,
Okay,
it's just like
Mm.
I mean when you specify that
Mhm.
exactly, most probably soon a model can also produce.
Mm.
Yeah, that was always a big problem with outsourcing quite often. I mean, if I want to have a million pairs of Nikes, it's quite easy. You just specify it once, I get the stuff back. Super cheap. Software, it's really a complete different game because I have to put in a lot of work for actually specifying that stuff, and then there's always human error involved, different languages and so on. It's really difficult.
Mm.
This process can be done much better with GPT, I would say. Because quite often it was really like you have to be so specific in the spec that you hand over, and you could almost write it by yourself.
Mm.
This will be done by the machine.
I also think that this will change the way we do process automation on a low level because it's kind of you can do it yourself now, or you can almost do it yourself. And I think a lot of processes will now be automated because it's a lot cheaper to achieve. Not the deep software and deep engineering stuff, but the easy ones. And I think that's a huge thing. I think we will see progress there.
So Kevin, for a typical, or also Tommaso, for a typical Swiss-based, Swiss-made software kind of environment, is that a good thing?
Honestly, personally, I use Copilot,
Mhm.
which ChatGPT at the end,
Mhm.
and I got, I would say, 50% more productive easily.
Mm.
So the question is, will be more job be created, or what? Because it's true that it's not going to replace us. But on the other hand, you need less people now. That's good.
Mm.
So,
Which is a bottleneck in the industry, actually, having enough people to program. So this could be actually very positive for the industry.
That's it,
yeah.
There's also a legal problem. Sorry if I jump in again here, but anybody remember Android? Anybody know 1/3 of this was actually programmed in Switzerland? All the core libraries were done by Nosa Engineering in Winterthur. In the first release, of course. And anybody remember the lawsuit? Because, who was it? I think Adobe found some code snippets that the programmers had, copy-pasted into this new system. And of course, you guys get more productive. That's one thing. On the other hand, what if your productivity jump results in more legal action. Stuff like that. This is definitely not yours. This is not yours. Now pay me.
You have to hire more lawyers then.
Yes. Maybe that's it. Stop being a programmer, become a lawyer.
But what's actually the job of the developer? It's about like logical thinking, about like working to create something. And one job is also to the documentate thing. And what's one thing that developer don't like so much? And here they spend a lot of time to document the code or the program, what they don't like, and they spend a lot of time. And here, there, I think, is really ChatGPT or any other software can help a lot to spend time to concentrate and focus on the logical things, on create stuff, and not on like administrator creating the stuff and maybe make documentations. And there, it's release a little bit the pain of the developer. I would say.
Now he documented by writing to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then
It's like document this, and then you have your documentation, and everything is happy. Business is happy, developer is happy. So produce me a code.
Is a code better quality or less good quality than human? Because most time spent is actually debugging applications, maintaining applications. So if you generate code which is unreadable, I mean, you will spend a lot more time after. So is the code produced better quality or
Depends on what I do quite often is sometimes stuff that I wrote 4 years ago and got really expanded code to me, but suddenly everything is really extremely well documented. So
get better?
definitely better than mine.
Also mine, yes.
But I mean, in the end, it's produced by the large code base. I mean, the model learns from the large code bases out there. If you curate them a bit more, so maybe don't take in some projects, then it's even better.
The funny thing, connecting to Lawsuit, that if you learn about it, now Microsoft has a bit the monopoly on it, right? Copilot is on Microsoft stuff. And this thing has been trained on Linux, on all open source stuff that was programmed by people that hate Microsoft.
Just Paris Lawsuit saying exactly for that.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to have your opinion. First, maybe I need to explain a few things. I'm sure most of you is Swiss already. So we know that Microsoft has informed the public that they will integrate ChatGPT to be Microsoft products. But actually, we know that it is already working there. Years ago, Argentina government and Microsoft made a deal so that Microsoft would inform the government about the young girls who would have a high probability to be pregnant within 6 months. In Switzerland, in the primary schools, I think during the third class or second, kids, all the students get a Microsoft laptop, which is like a smartphone, both sides, cameras and everything, and also the kids have a proper mail account with the first name and the family name provided by the Basel University. So from the age of, let's say, 10, your children are already recorded well in the database, and the data is being processed by the AI. And okay, I can go on for hours about this because this is my topic, security and privacy. What do you think, guys? This is your country.
I mean, what is changing in your opinion? Because I mean, we do that for a long time. You know, we use TikTok and we give them all the data, and we start very early and we let our kids do it. I don't see that there is a big change in that. I mean, I totally agree with you. It's not a good thing that we are so careless with this.
Yes,
but
you are right. Yeah,
but I'm not seeing that there is a tipping point in that.
Yeah, we have been using all these kind of stuff as grown-ups, but nowadays the target is the children.
But
And
I mean, it
so
was for a
many
while.
kids.
No, I mean, I don't see the connection to the whole.
I mean,
AI
surveillance
stuff.
will probably become more efficient. Right?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of big problems. Let's see, like super targeted attacks on scale, like spear phishing on scale, using GPT-4 and so on. I totally see a lot of like scenarios. But this scenario, I'm not sure it changed so much with the new technology. I might be
It
wrong.
changes because this is a huge improvement, development within the public, okay, below the technical people. So it's going more public and public. Okay, so the point is, maybe it is your responsibility to give a shot and maybe make a wake-up call. Okay, if it goes like this, it is not like a TikTok thing. It's gonna be more than that.
I mean, there was the interesting thing like a few weeks ago where they wanted to stop the development for 6 months. But I mean, this just, first of all, we don't want to question who asked for it. The more important is now that it's out, it's game theory. No one will stop this ever because you cannot stop while the others are continuing it. So while I agree that it is not always just good to do this without thinking too much about it, I don't see that we can do anything right now.
But how about your clients? How about your, let's say, how are they aware? I mean, are they comfortable with?
But how about the education in a parallel way? Okay, of course, make sure that everybody uses these kind of products, but by being aware of the danger so that they can take some prevention. Something like even a piece of tape and cover the camera. Something like not using your real name while using these kind of platforms. Something like, hey, provide all your insurance, health insurance data to the companies like who are going through everything, so that in 10 years, when you get sick, when you want to have a different insurance policy, you wouldn't get.
I mean, I totally agree with you on that.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's all here.
It's
Well, I
just
think it's about like the velocity of the laws and the velocity of the technique. And the technique has not really boundaries, and then the technique is developed. Then after that, the government comes, and then they have to say, "Oh, this new technology, we have to build up the laws
It's gonna be too late after
self-driving cars as well. The laws has been developed, and they are so slow, and they breaking down a little bit the development of the technology. But in some other points, like data privacy, there is like now in the Swiss, you're like also a bit later than like the EU with the GDPR. But now we going also this step and to save the data from the public persons, and it's coming on the 1st of September.
I'm sorry if I jump in here again. I disagree, and I don't mean this personally. I think there's a very easy way we can deal with this, and this is skin in the game. If you build something that hurts a lot of people, you go to jail, we take all your money. I'm pretty sure we'll see results very fast.
But if you can make money with hurting other people, there's a lot of people who would do this.
Yeah, that might be true, but still, they all go to jail.
I think the
If
central
there is no law against it.
Again, you just you punish the result, not the method. So if I hit you over the head with a crowbar, I go to jail, right? If I run you over with the car, I go to jail. It doesn't matter what if I do use a car or a crowbar, I'm in dead.
If you steal data and there is no law against it, you don't go to jail.
Like I said, you can say it's not allowed. If I catch you with the wrong data, you go to jail.
yeah, but then
But it's also kind of more tricky to like specify what like your data can be used to do good or harm. Like let's say someone spies on your medical data, like they record your click speed on Facebook, and then they realize your clicks get slower over the last 2 years, so you got dementia or whatever. And you could use this for good, right? You could if you sell this to your personal doctor, he might be happy, or to you. But if you sell this to the insurance company that they crank up your insurance policy, then it's a bad thing. So
To be able to do
It's a
that,
little
we
bit-
have to anonymize the data. Which company is doing that?
Or you could say opt-in. I want all the people to use the data to do me good. That's fine. I don't trust nobody. No, you can't have my data. I mean, this is pretty simple.
It was a bit what Italy is now
Mhm.
stopping them for, because
Mhm.
you just use all data. You don't ask people.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. You know, you make money off the data you've stolen. You could say, look, guys, this doesn't work anymore. If you look at Microsoft, what's their profit margin? 30%. You can just increase the tax. You pay 10% because we know you stole most of it anyways. Okay, everybody thinks this is like fancy. And we can't do that. But in the end, if you look at all the great changes that have happened, nobody said these would happen. Everything stays the same until it changes. And you have to kind of open your mind to the possibilities.
I'm all for this. I mean, I would love to have this happen. I just don't think it's.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it didn't
that's-
happen.
But is there a change in your clients, the companies? Are they aware of these
Yeah.
problems? I mean, I agree that education is very important, and I also am with you. But I would be curious to know, are the
mean,
companies cool to send everything to Microsoft or
Surprised
to?
how some of them are. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Lisa, we said that I don't want this data to go outside of Switzerland. So we have some,
Mhm.
and it's not even that they're naive. I think some of them really back it up with their stuff. So they just to know what they do.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot more cases possible. I think banks, they used to hide a little bit behind the Cloud Act for a while, so they were a bit like holding back. But I think also they get easier and easier with this. So I'm actually surprised what they are willing to do.
Mm.
Can you guys give us? Sorry, I was just gonna say, can you just following on, but a little bit of different thing. Can you guys give us a bit of an overview of what countries, like the kind of geo camera angle of this? Who does this well? Like who is more advanced than others? What are the trends between countries? Obviously, China has come up and basically said, anyone who's foreign company like who's transferring data outside of China is not going to be, is not going to be punished and so on. So, can somebody give me a bit of an overview on how this works across the globe? What are the trends?
In terms of AI in general? Or?
No, in terms of data protection. Sorry, just
Ah.
like we were talking about data protection. We're talking about selling data. We're talking about monetizing data, going to prison.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Europe, obviously, with the GDPR, I guess it's kind of tight, at least on making sure that you're not followed from Facebook everywhere unless you really opt in. The US, as far as I'm aware, is still a little bit like everything goes. But I suppose there's some kind of ideas or some kind of regulations coming, maybe. Well, China is a very different beast, obviously. There's everything is ruled by the government, exactly. And I mean, at least from my point of view, what I would describe as a dystopia where you can basically be assured that everything that you do have is actually recorded and it's going to increase your social score, and if you're not a nice citizen, no more train rights, no more whatever. So yeah, it's really kind of a bit of divided at the moment.
Do you guys think that GDPR is actually effective? Like, I just think 99% of people just like I just want to get to it. I'm just gonna accept, right?
Sure, but there are also solutions like, for example, Brave, and it will just automatically decline if that's it.
But that's a bit the issue that I see. Like we all complain about privacy. We all say, well, it's important, but then in reality, we go to YouTube, we have different processes. And there are the funny thing, there are options. Like you could use other instead of using Gmail, use something else. You don't use Teams from Microsoft anymore. Just we don't care at the end. I think honestly, like
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. No one cares, except very few.
Yeah, well, everyone cares a lot. It's impossible that someone is going to look at my email and say, it won't happen ever. Oh, it's free, it has a new nice UI, and whatever. Here we go. So it's very complicated.
The question is, can it be used as a weapon, and will it be used as a weapon? If it's a weapon, and it will be used as a weapon, as every modern technology has sooner or later be used as a weapon, and we will find out. But it's really frightening to think of what kind of weapon that would be, because you can really control other people and whole nations with this weapon, because they depend on foreign intelligence.
So
perfect, I think, from many, many different angles. I mean, that mobile phone is the perfect bug. It basically captures everything where you go, your contacts, everything, and that's stored forever. And also on a large scale, I think a lot of the trouble, especially in the West, we see at the moment that we have so many different factions, no one can agree on anything that is largely fueled by social media. And you can also scale the discourse in any direction that can be clearly used.
I mean, maybe also to add, I mean, now we talk about GPT-4 and so on, but I mean, this cat is out of the box, so soon everyone will have these models. I mean, Facebook kind of leaked out their 65 billion parameter model, which is apparently quite good. Then afterwards, there was a huge rush in the community to build on top of that, and that was just the beginning. So there's a lot of open source already out, which is also, I think it's good, but we just need to be aware that what GPT-4 can do right now, in half a year, this will be available to any, let's say, larger group with a bit of financial resources. They can do whatever they want.
I think the Facebook model, they managed to make it run on a laptop already. So and
on a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, okay.
Only the smaller ones, but yeah, I mean, totally agree. So we just need to be aware that what we see now and that surprises us will be available to bigger groups with a bit of financial capacity in like half a year and maybe to everyone in 2 years. So I think the idea of like large-scale attacks with using all kind of information of you in the internet with perfect secure phishing approach, this will just be the norm. So we need to be aware that this is coming for sure. Yeah.
So this is a cybersecurity issue.
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, it's just someone is talking to you or sending you mails, and it sounds super legit, and they use all the information they found about you in the web. And you can already do that right now, but it needs humans to do it. And in the future, it will be like fully automated on scale. So.
But then when you extrapolate that, like, how do we then stop attacks on banks stealing your money? Like, it doesn't stop at information. It's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, the banks try with the KYC process now. I mean, they try to figure out who's allowed to do something. I don't really know what we can do in general to stop this kind of attacks, but I mean, it's also a cat and mouse game, so we will figure out. We will also use these models again to protect. Yeah, I honestly don't know yet.
The technology itself is not a problem, it's a good thing. The problem is who's dominating, who's ruling this domain. So I just did my job. It was a wake-up call. And
yeah, I mean, this would be also.
You are good guys, you are good technological-wise and human-wise. And in Basel, I'm sure you have some roles, okay? But don't forget your role as a human being, as a father, as a mother.
Yes, that would also a little bit be my last question on to you. What does this mean actually for Basel, for Swiss-made software, for our industry, right? Because it's going to be again like the three big guys over there dictating everything, or is there just a possibility that there is I mean, I understand it's also about scale. I'm happy to learn that you can even do great stuff with a small scale, as I learned, yes. So I would like to know a little bit more about that. So what could be done, or what does that mean for our industry? I learned that, okay, you can program faster using those tools, which could be good. We can do more software here, we can grow here. But what does it mean in a long term, bigger scale? Maybe each one of you, and then what do you think?
Well, for us, it's more a supporting tool, like you said, that we can make better, faster services or offer the services. We also using like Azure services for face recognition or something like that, and other tools. So we still just jump on the hype also somehow, and also deliver our customer. That's what they want. So in our situation.
Yeah, but the problem is a little bit if it's a word processing, writing. I could say I don't care, but as we heard, as we go into this, it goes deeper into who we are, how we think, etc. And then you rely on somebody else that controls it. It's a little bit scary, right? So that was a little bit. What do you think?
Marketing is already using like something similar like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's not like that. She doesn't have to do nothing anymore.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
has to write smaller text.
Yeah, yeah,
Then lecture after it and to rewrite it a little bit and then make it nice. But it helps her to do a lot more articles and be more efficient.
I think it will enable a lot of creative people to produce stuff.
Mhm.
It will shift a little bit from like technical people that you have to program, but it's gonna allow for a lot of
But you
creative-
don't really have a problem that then we rely on a couple of big tech pros.
I'm not sure this will happen. There's a huge effort in research groups to democratize this.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also the Open Assistant project, which is also the Jan Kierkegaard from Zurich who's involved. I don't know if the other founder is he German or Swiss, I don't know. But and as I said, it took like a few weeks from going to these hundreds of millions of costs to train a model to something that is comparable for under $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's really just the beginning, and I mean, obviously there will always be the guys with the real money, with the heavy hitting scientists who are top of the game, who can do stuff that other people cannot do. But I think for most of the stuff, there's no danger of like depending too much on these players, because it will just naturally evolve. I mean, it's like any other technology, or like keeping a monopoly on technologies. I think super hard.
Okay.
And to be fair, I mean, we already right now rely on the few tech pros in the US.
Of course,
All
yeah.
our cloud infrastructure is basically.
It's just a question if strategically we have to change this, you know.
I think it will happen in a small. I mean, I also agree there will be open source models. We saw it very nicely with generative art. I mean, there Stable Diffusion really made an impact and made a difference. I mean, Midjourney is not the DALL-E model by OpenAI, which is closed, but it's improvement of the Stable Diffusion model, which is open source. So I think in general, the open source process is always better, even if it's something scary like a large model. I basically agree with you in the way that I don't think we are like, I mean, everyone is throwing around right now this word AI and AGI and like, I don't think that's it. I think we just created a very nice tool and it will become even more powerful, but I don't see yet that we are in real danger of like super intelligence. It's always hard to say, but it doesn't feel like.
I was like thinking about this. This is a kind of I live in the mountains. I live in the Walden region, so I have some walks in the night. And I was ruminating about this fact that as humans, we always thought like the human brain as the kind of the thing that was making the difference as compared to animals. Now it seems like this tool can do tasks that require some cognitive attention, but yet it does not have emotions and stuff like that. And then I was thinking, but maybe like what contradistinguishes us as a human is not really our intelligence, but it's the rest of the emotion. Because if you think about it, like in order to the human being to be kind of evolved from monkeys, whatever, if you look at at the fraction of time life was on Earth, it's like last minute of the last second, right? I mean, maybe we got there with this thing. Maybe in 5 years, whatever, we're gonna get there. But the last of what contradistinguishes us, like having like our body and emotion and stuff like that, they really require billions of years to be evolved. I think we're still far away there.
Yes, I mean that singularity moment. I think Kurzweil just postponed it to 2014. Once again, yeah. I think it was actually around 25. So for people who has been longer in this scene, yeah, that's what I just read before coming here. I asked ChatGPT, so must know. So
also, like the founders of artificial intelligence research said like the AGI, they were like in the 50s, 60s, said it's going to be the 80s, it's going to be the 90s. There were all kinds of prediction of that. We could make a book of, all the predictions of the end of the world, the singularity. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And maybe a final point is, I think one effect of this whole is kind of to make obvious to a lot of people how low the general level for many things is. To just give you a real world example, everybody in here is in the tech industry. Everybody has tried ChatGPT for something. Okay, let me tell you another group of people who've tried ChatGPT. Everybody from 6th grade up who didn't want to write the paper for the teacher. Because I had that with my son in his class. Hey, you tried this ChatGPT thing, And what also happened to have a friend of mine, he's a very smart guy. He said, hey, my son, he had like this assignment from school. and he was asked to do a short movie about the fall of the Berlin Wall. And he said, like, ChatGPT, write me a script. And he said, this is massively interesting, and blah, blah. I said, the level is just very low. Because if you look at the stuff that the kids produce from an adult level, you see how, if you have kids, and you help them in school, they do some stuff that you see they are really struggling. And for you, it's like, God, this is stupid, But you can't really let them know because you can't discourage them. But that's one part. Number two is everyone in this room is an expert in something, okay? Now you go in the general media and you read an article about your field of expertise, and it's crap. It really is, and then ChatGPT produces something that's so much better. Whoa, no, the level is just very low. This is also some perspective. I mean, every one of these perspectives is completely valid. All of this will happen at the same time. But, maybe in the mix of it all, there will be some emergent phenomenon that a few years down the road. Maybe not intelligence, but...
So what do you guys think will be the next big thing? Like now, considering language is 80% solved or something like this. What's the next?
I think language is already super big thing because a lot of the jobs that we have today are totally based on language to fill some processes and whatnot. And actually to enable ChatGPT to do things that require quite a bit of expertise are surprisingly easy by just applying a quick trick. I mean, we heard this in one of those presentations before. All you need is just a vector database, dump your information in, and all of a sudden it's not broad, and you can really validate in your field that that stuff is really rock solid, and typically you need like 1 or 2 years to really get there on that scale. And basically, at least in a Jupyter notebook, that's 7 lines of one chain, and with that you can really affect a lot of jobs. So I guess this is going to be something that we're going to do in the workforce quite a bit in the upcoming years.
And do you feel like there will be huge gains to?
I don't know. I mean, just one example was just, hey, I'm going to replace myself. And well, Magnolia is a DXP platform. There's a lot of complex different systems involved, and there's a lot of technology that you have to know. And you get RFPs, and those RFPs have a lot of questions that you have to manually somehow answer. And you have to investigate. We know it all.
Exactly the same.
No, but I mean from the level from the quality of
that's
of
the
the
thing
stuff
with quality.
you get out.
When I had my training set, because I got all the old RFPs, I just dumped them, I cleaned them, I trained on it, and it was awful, horrible. Okay, cool. Then I started to clean that stuff quite a bit, and then suddenly Magnolia was not registered on the stock exchange and all the stuff anymore, but it was getting to a kind of precise level, but maybe at 6% it was good. Okay, suddenly there was LangChain. I just took all the documentation that we have, chew on it. I just took on top of this all the old RFP data, and now that thing is as good as I can.
It's so funny, we did exactly the same for our RFPs. So everyone will do that at 30 now. You can forget RFPs.
It's just one example. You can just take PDFs, HTML files, doesn't matter what it is, and all of a sudden it's not hallucinating. As we saw in this presentation, it's just going to pick up the right bits, and it's going to be very high. So that's my prediction for those kind of jobs. It's going to change quite a bit.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. So, yes, I think, thank you for listening. I'm just going to close it shortly. Sorry. I'm on the wrong page. Because we have one more guest that I would like to ask to join us, because he will explain us something. I think you can take here. You can just switch it off. Yeah.
Sorry guys for screwing up and taking away your time. It's networking time.
I don't know if you have to download it or you have to check.
install the software or execute the software.
Matter of fact, it's I can do it without slides anyway. So my name's Michael Beglinger. You can call me Mitch. Actually born in Basel, but raised in California. So I work in digital since more than 20 years. Live here in the region because we have a family here, 3 sons. Heavily committed to everything that happens these days. And heavily committed to actually foster also this digital ecosystem here in Basel, this tech ecosystem. So thank you guys for organizing, great initiative. Good to see many faces again. I was a bit underwater in the last couple of months. Some of you know why. Today I do not wear actually the hat of Parkside Interactive that you saw. That's one of my ventures that I have. A digital agency that was formerly known as Wondrous here in Basel, but we are part of Parkside now, for those who are interested in. But today I actually wear the hat of Metaporta. This is one of our latest ventures. A few colleagues of mine founded this company last December. And why it's important for me to have that chance to speak to you today is that right over there on 2,500 square meters, we are actually building a venture club here in the region. Metaporta stands for a venture studio that brings together all the ecosystem components. You can actually ask ChatGPT what's a venture studio. And as one of our first priorities is to actually build venture clubs, and as the name club says everything, heavily focusing on these 3 disruptive technologies, AI, blockchain, and Web3. And to offer the great region, I mean, we are all privileged to work in the life science cluster #1 in Europe, to actually make it to the health tech cluster #1, hopefully worldwide. So that's the purpose. That's why we're starting it. In a few months, we will open the doors over there on 2,500 square meters. We have exclusive partners on board to not only, we do not have only a space offering, we do have that as the first pillar, but more importantly, we do the stimulation part, that's part of the ecosystem game. But more importantly, we try to really orchestrate the best projects and to establish an environment that really leads to impact and groundbreaking results. So just to spoil it a little bit and tell you a bit more about that. On the talent side, for example, we have the headquarters of ICT Scouts over there. ICT Scouts is one of the biggest privately funded initiatives in Switzerland that addresses the youngest talents of us, between 12 and 16 years old. The headquarters of ICT Scouts is over there, and on 2 days a week, 140 kids in average, they sit over there and code on interesting stuff. On an event side, we have the Robo pre-selection, Robo World Championship pre-selection. That's going to be happening in May already, where the space is actually naked. It's not ready, but it's actually pretty decent to run a World Championship selection. And the highlight probably on the AI side, that's the topic of today, is we partnered with Merontics, the venture studio in Berlin, and will bring the second AI campus from Berlin to Basel, heavily focusing on health tech projects, and tell you more about that. If you're interested to get more information about what's happening over there, then come to me, we'll share data, and then we stay in touch. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So now there are some food and drinks right out there, and I will not say any more because I think we all deserve some good food. Fresh air, yeah. Thank you very much.